Before the canal, the world felt impossibly large. Two great oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, lapped at the shores of the Americas, yet they were separated by a thin, stubborn spine of land. For a ship sailing from New York to San Francisco, the journey was a monstrous undertaking. It meant a voyage of some 13,000 miles, a perilous trip that could take months. Captains had to guide their vessels down the entire length of South America, facing the treacherous, unpredictable waters of Cape Horn. The alternative, an overland trek across the American continent, was just as dangerous. The dream was simple, yet immense. If only a path could be cut through the narrowest part of the continent, the Isthmus of Panama. This sliver of land, barely 50 miles wide, was a geographical bottleneck. A canal would be a key to global power and prosperity. It would slash the journey from New York to San Francisco by nearly 8,000 miles. The strategic importance was undeniable. The nation that controlled such a waterway would hold a powerful hand in the affairs of the world. To conquer this land would require more than shovels and steel. It would demand a new level of human ingenuity and sacrifice. The first to make a serious attempt were the French. They were filled with confidence, riding the wave of their spectacular success in building the Suez Canal in Egypt. The man who led the charge was Ferdinand de Lesseps, a national hero, a diplomat, not an engineer, but a figure of immense charisma and persuasive power. In 1881, the French arrived with great fanfare, bringing their machinery, their ambition, and a profound underestimation of the challenge ahead. They planned to dig a sea-level canal, a straight trench through the mountains, just as they had at Suez. Panama was not a flat, arid desert. It was a mountainous jungle, a place of relentless rain and unstable earth. The project was bleeding money at an astonishing rate, but the financial cost was nothing compared to the human toll. The true enemy in Panama was not the rock or the rain, it was disease. The French had no understanding of how yellow fever and malaria were transmitted. The hospital, meant to be a place of healing, became a place of death. The project collapsed under the weight of its own failure. The death toll was staggering. By 1889, the French effort was over. The dream of a path between the seas seemed to be buried forever in the Panamanian mud. The French failure did not end the dream. It merely passed it on to a nation with a new sense of power and purpose, the United States. And in the White House sat a man who embodied that spirit, President Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt saw the canal not just as an engineering project, but as a grand symbol of American might and a fulfillment of its destiny. He famously said, "I took the isthmus, started the canal, and then left Congress not to debate the canal, but to debate me." At the time, Panama was not an independent country. It was a province of Colombia. The United States government negotiated a treaty with Colombia to acquire the rights to build the canal, but the Colombian Senate rejected the deal. Instead of renegotiating, Roosevelt and his administration chose a different path. They knew that a small group of Panamanian nationalists had long desired to break away from Colombia. On November 3, 1903, the revolution began. With American naval power ensuring their success, the revolutionaries declared the independence of the Republic of Panama. The United States recognized the new nation with astonishing speed just 3 days later. A new treaty, the Hay-Bunau-Varilla Treaty, was quickly signed, granting the U.S. control of a 10-mile-wide canal zone in perpetuity. With the legal and political path cleared, the Americans arrived in 1904 to take over where the French had left off. The American effort began not with digging, but with cleaning. The chief sanitary officer for the project was a brilliant, determined army doctor named William C. Gorgas. Gorgas knew that to build a canal, he first had to build a healthy environment for the workers. He arrived to find a sanitation nightmare. The main cities, Colón and Panama City, were squalid, lacking sewers or clean water. Gorgas declared war on the mosquito. His plan was radical and met with skepticism from the canal's early leadership. He organized massive sanitation teams, an army of 4,000 men who went door to door. They fumigated homes, drained swamps, covered open water containers, and installed screens on windows and doors. The campaign was relentless and meticulous. The workers on the sanitation squads became known as the mosquito brigades, and their work was just as vital as that of the engineers. The results were nothing short of miraculous. By the end of 1906, Yellow fever had been completely eradicated from the Canal Zone. While malaria proved more stubborn, its rates were dramatically reduced. Without this victory, the canal could never have been built. With the threat of disease finally under control, the engineers could at last turn their full attention to the monumental task of the excavation itself. The new chief engineer, John Stevens, made a crucial decision. He abandoned the French plan for a sea-level canal. Stevens's vision was bold. Instead of fighting the river, he would tame it. He would build the largest dam in the world to create the largest artificial lake in the world. The plan was to build a colossal earthen dam at Gatun. This would create a vast body of water, Gatun Lake, which would rise 85 feet above sea level. Building the Gatun Dam was an epic undertaking in itself. The wild river that had defeated the French had been turned into a calm, navigable highway for the ships of the world. While the Gatun Dam was rising, the project's most famous and formidable battle was being waged in the center of the isthmus. This was the Culebra Cut, the 9-mile-long trench that had to be carved through the Continental Divide. The French had barely made a dent in it, and the Americans now faced the same challenge, but on a much grander scale. The work was deafening, dirty, and incredibly dangerous. The strategy was one of brute force, executed with brilliant organization. The primary tools were steam shovels and dynamite. Workers would drill thousands of holes into the rock face, pack them with explosives, and then detonate them in massive, earth-shattering blasts. The greatest enemy in the cut was the Earth itself. The geological makeup of the mountains was a nightmare. Layers of hard volcanic rock mixed with soft, clay-like material. The slides were unpredictable and terrifying. For the men who worked there, the Culebra Cut was a place of constant, nerve-wracking danger. The creation of Gatun Lake, 85 feet above sea level, solved one problem but created another: how to get ships up from the ocean to the lake, and then back down again on the other side. The answer was a system of locks, which would act as a kind of aquatic staircase. This was the technological heart of the canal, a masterpiece of early 20th century engineering. 3 sets of locks were built: the Gatun locks on the Atlantic side to lift ships up to the lake, and the Pedro Miguel and Miraflores locks on the Pacific side to lower them back down. The construction of the locks was a project of staggering proportions. The lock gates were equally impressive. Each gate was a towering steel structure, yet they were so perfectly balanced that they could be opened and closed by a modest 40-horsepower motor. The operation of the locks was a marvel of hydraulic engineering and clever design. Guiding the massive ships through the narrow lock chambers was a delicate process. The entire system, from the flow of water to the movement of the gates and mules, was controlled from a central control house. It was a system built to last, and it has operated with remarkable reliability for over a century. On August 15, 1914, the world celebrated a quiet triumph. The steamship SS Ancon made the first official transit of the Panama Canal. The path between the seas was finally a reality. The completion of the canal was one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. The impact on global trade and naval strategy was immediate and profound. The world had effectively been made smaller. For the United States, it was a strategic triumph. However, this triumph had a darker side. For the people of Panama, the canal was both a source of pride and a deep wound. The Canal Zone was a sovereign United States territory over which Panama had no control. This division created decades of tension. The existence of the Canal Zone was a constant reminder of the controversial way their nation had been born. The grand achievement of engineering that united the oceans had also created a deep and painful political divide within the small nation that hosted it. The resentment that simmered for decades finally led to change. After years of difficult and often tense negotiations, United States President Jimmy Carter and Panamanian leader Omar Torrijos signed 2 new treaties in 1977. These historic agreements laid out a plan for the gradual transfer of the canal and the Canal Zone to Panamanian control. On December 31, 1999, the promise of the treaties was fulfilled. In a ceremony filled with national pride, the United States formally handed over control of the Panama Canal to the Republic of Panama. After nearly a century, the canal finally belonged to the people of Panama. Under Panamanian control, the canal has continued to thrive. But new challenges have emerged. Modern container ships and supertankers known as post-Panamax vessels were built too large to fit through the original locks. To remain competitive, Panama embarked on a massive expansion project completed in 2016. Today, the Panama Canal remains as vital as ever. It faces new challenges, from the competition of other routes to the environmental concerns of climate change. It is a story of a world made smaller, of a nation's struggle for sovereignty, and of a 50-mile wound that has, over time, begun to heal.